When we arrive somewhere beautiful, there's often a quiet urge to experience as much as possible, to move from moment to moment, taking it all in. But what happens when we approach a place differently? When we slow down, or even move quickly, but with a deeper sense of presence? Because true immersion in nature isn't really about how fast or slow we move. It's about how fully we allow ourselves to be there. I arrived at Zion that afternoon just before a winter storm began to move into the canyon. After setting up my tent at Watchman Campground, I drove into the valley as the first snowflakes started to fall. At first, it was light, just a few flakes drifting through the air. But as I made my way deeper into the canyon, the snow began to gather on the ground, and the cliffs above slowly disappeared into the clouds. Everything started to quiet down. Fewer people, softer light, a different kind of stillness settling over the canyon. I stopped near the trailhead to the Narrows for a few minutes and walked along the river while the snow continued to fall. There's something about moments like that where the environment begins to slow your mind without you even trying. Your attention naturally shifts. You start noticing things you might otherwise pass right by. The sound of the river, the way the snow gathers on the branches, the changing color of the canyon walls. And at some point along the way, I sat down on a fallen log and just looked up at the cliffs as the snow continued to fall. It's hard to describe moments like that. There was a sense of calm, but also awe, gratitude, almost a kind of childlike wonder. Just sitting there, watching the canyon slowly change as winter settled into the landscape. In moments like that, you realize something simple but easy to forget. Nature immersion isn't really about how slowly you move. It's about how present you are while you're moving. Sometimes that presence looks like stillness, pausing long enough to truly take in where you are, letting the place move at its own pace instead of your own. But other times, immersion in nature looks very different. As the snow continued to fall, I decided to head toward the Emerald Pools Trail. Before long, the snow began sticking to the trail, and the rocks beneath my feet were getting slick, so I stopped and put on my microspikes for traction. There's something powerful about experiencing that requires your full attention. The cold air, the sound of rushing water, the wind moving through the canyon. Every part of your body and mind becomes engaged with the environment around you. And even though the conditions were more challenging than I expected, reaching that place felt deeply rewarding. Not because it was comfortable, but because I had stayed present enough to experience it fully. Sometimes, immersion in nature happens in quiet moments of stillness, and other times it happens when we're fully engaged with the elements around us. But the common thread is presence, allowing the place you're in to shape your pace, your attention, and your experience of the moment. The further I climbed, the heavier the snow became. By the time I reached the upper pools, the canyon had grown quiet and nearly empty. Wind was moving through the cliffs. Snow was blowing sideways across the rock walls and hitting my face. And stepping across the stones in the water near the falls took careful balance as the conditions grew colder and more intense. It wasn't peaceful in the way we often imagine nature to be. It was wild, windy, cold, and somehow incredibly exhilarating. In that moment, I felt completely alive. As I made my way back down toward the lower pools, the snow continued falling through the canyon. And standing there for a few minutes before heading back, I found myself thinking about how easy it is in everyday life to move too quickly through the places we visit, and even through the moments of our lives. But when we slow down enough to truly experience where we are, or allow ourselves to fully engage with the moment unfolding in front of us, something shifts. The world becomes a little more vivid, a little more meaningful. And the more we practice that kind of presence in nature, the easier it becomes to carry that same presence into the rest of our lives. Take good care.